Our theme this month is the Undead on the Monster Guys podcast. We've got a lot of monsters to talk about tonight, so let's get to it. Okay, so we're talking about the Undead again this week, and we're starting off. This is a stunning soundtrack, by the way. We're starting off
to that fanfare.
It's amazing. We're starting off doing a reaction podcast to an old Asian film.
Mr. Vampire.
Mr. Vampire is the film.
It's actually spawned a whole genre of comedy horror called jiangshi. Well, it was just that jiangshi cinema.
Jiangshi cinema, and we're actually going to be talking about the jiangshi later on in this podcast. So, kind of watching Mr. Okay, here we go. Opening scene.
Lots of hopping vampires.
A lot of hopping vampires here. Classic look to them. Oh wait, this guy's got some serious stuff going on with his flesh.
Nasty.
It definitely looks like it's glued on, though.
But look at that.
Oh, look at those fingernails. Oh,
very slimy.
He just pulled off a piece of that slimy flesh.
It was very slimy.
That guy's fingernails are intense.
What is it? That was priest.
I have no idea what they're saying. He's talking about a female ghost. Oh, this guy's like talking about the female ghost being a horny ghost. That's strange.
It's comedy horror.
This is all in the trailer, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, these two guys are antagonizing, it seems like, this
it looks
beautiful
like
lady.
One is trying to be
Oh,
nice,
wait.
the other's not.
Oh, he just got slapped! Did you hear that?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, wait, what is this?
That is a Tron coffin, if I've ever seen one.
It is a Tron coffin.
Raven
It's about... Oh, it just... Wow. Amazing visual effects.
Now, you really can't tell who's on whose side.
Wait a second. I've done that makeup before.
Now, actually, this guy was famous for his unibrow in this film.
Well, he's definitely got it going. Oh, wait, okay. Zombie creature with the rat crawling across his... Now, I understand that the animals in this movie are all real animals. Like for the snake that they used... Oh, wait, hold on. Ah! Whoa, what is she? She's the nukekubi.
Awesome special effects there.
Holy cow, what happened to that woman's hair? And the sword!
It's straight out of, Power of Grayskull.
That is some serious Grayskull. Okay, here's a vampire.
Vampire's doing the T-Rex movement.
T-Rex... Godzilla movements for the vampire.
I think he's in the wrong movie.
Oh, he's got some serious fingernails going on there, too.
Yeah, his are, all blue.
His are blue, though, I guess.
I don't understand that.
Oh, smacked in the face with a chair. This is awesome. Flying woman. What is that?
I like how she goes all Superman, but then is so graceful when she touches the door.
What is this? What is she?
I don't know. I don't know if she's on the side of the Taoist priest or not. I don't know who's on whose side.
There's a lot of monsters going on, and a lot of humans, and a lot of people dying. Oh, that looks like a Lost Boys fence post attempt at killing the vampire, but it didn't work.
To be honest, it looks like the same people are dying over and over again.
This grandpa vampire is the real deal.
Vampire.
He's not going to... Oh, wait.
There's a lot
hopping
of
vampires.
And there's the priest controlling them.
Okay, the priest controlling the hopping vampires. And they've got the little thing on their forehead.
Yeah, the talisman that keeps them in check.
Right.
Ooh.
Mr. Vampire. Wow. Effect. That was special. That was special to watch. I don't know. I want to watch the whole thing.
No, I really do. They've actually got a lot of the movies online to watch, and I started to watch number 4 or 5 the other day, and I was exhausted, so I fell asleep. It was nothing against the movie. It was pretty cool. There was a little hopping vampire kid that was on their side. It was pretty fun. Okay, well there we go. We did a little reaction podcast to Mr. Vampire trailer from I think 1985. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
stunning. Okay.
The Monster Guys podcast begins now.
Absolutely terrifying.
Bizarre in all of its monstrous glory.
Grotesque.
It's fascinating. witch sea cucumber or something.
A witch sea Did you just say a witch sea cucumber?
That's kind of what they do.
I guess. Welcome to the Monster Guys podcast. As always, I'm DC McGannon, and I'm here, as always, with my partner and co-conspirator in all things creative, C. Michael McGannon. How you doing, Michael?
I am doing great, as always. How are you?
I've seen better days. I've been pretty beat up the last couple of days.
You have gone through the ringer, haven't you?
Yeah, it's springtime, and spring has kicked my butt so far. I actually had kind of an allergy thing going on before spring actually happened, and it seems to be worse than normal because we didn't have a super cold winter here, and so I'm getting beat up like I haven't been since I lived in Germany and had an allergy attack.
I've been pretty okay, but there was, I don't know, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where my allergies just they exploded, and it was not good. It was bad.
Yeah, so I'm sipping on some tea to try to help my throat and everything through the recording tonight. Yesterday, though, I took some medication for allergies. As you know, I don't do very well with medication.
No, you don't.
At all. And what neither of us realized, either myself or my wife, your mother, that's kind of awkward to say when I'm talking to you about, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when Holly and I were looking at the medication, we did not see any indication of drowsiness. Well, if I take most medications that are non-drowsy make me drowsy. So if I take a medication that is drowsy-inducing, then...
Drowsy-inducing?
It's an official medical term somewhere. Then I go clear off the map. So last night, apparently, this was drowsy-inducing medication that I took unknowingly, and I had taken 2 doses before I went to bed. And let me tell you, I went straight off the rails. I was off the crazy train. I was gone to the wind. There was nothing left.
Your train was off the tracks and stayed off the tracks for quite some time. In fact, I was going to ask, I think we had planned on recording this episode earlier, but you were pretty out, and I was not. I remember you got up once, and then I looked around and you weren't there, and I just figured you were needing to be left be.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I didn't really know where I was or what I was doing when I woke up. It was very much a dreamlike state, but it was, I don't know, it was just weird. It's difficult to describe, but I realized very quickly that I did not need to be up, and so I went right back down. And I stayed down until such a time that I could open my eyes and realize whose house I was in, whose clothes I was wearing, and whose food I was eating, and Little Red Riding Hood was no longer at the door ready to eat me. So I was okay after that. It took me a while to get up and get going, but this has been a brutal few days with allergies.
Yeah, it seems like you're getting past it though. So hopefully you don't become one of the monsters that we're going to talk about tonight. By the end of all of that. Seriously,
because we've got some crazy, fearsome monsters to talk about. We're kind of going to go on a global tour tonight. We've got a lot of monsters, a lot of freaky, creepy monsters. So let's dive straight in, but let's start in Europe. Let's start with the ubir and the upir. 2 very different ones, UBIR versus the UPIR. Let's talk about those. First of all, the ubir, which is the ferocious undead of the 2. Where can we go with that one?
Both of these, I should point out, are very magical creatures, I should say. And I don't say that to be, they're not magical like fairies would be considered magical. They're not enchanting by any means.
By any means.
No,
I would not want to be enchanted by one of these.
The only enchantments they have are enchantments that are going to have your face ripped off by the end of the night. So there's no glamorous aspect to the ubir. They are undead. They are explicitly undead. They are bodies that have gotten up from the grave. Sometimes they're just incorporeal forms that will get up and float about and attack those who have gone to sleep at night. And originally that was, sucking the life energy out, and progress later on to, actually digging in and tearing you to pieces and drinking your blood. So that's the ubir. It's very ferocious, corpse-like, almost zombie-ish to an extent.
Yeah, I was going to say almost like a zombie. And the upir is more of a witch.
Yes.
It's a shape-shifting witch.
Still a vampire.
Which is terrifying all to itself, if you really think about that.
Shape-shifting witch?
Yes.
What other types of witches are there?
Well, I guess.
No, this is actually something that is coming to more popular interest, I guess. If you watch any, Netflix originals or anything, I'm sure you've heard of Hemlock Grove. Some of the main characters in that are described as being upir.
Now, I liked season 1. I haven't been able to get through season 2 yet, and I know there's a season 3, and people say it picks up again and goes back to the original storyline, but I'm gonna have to push to get through that one. I really enjoyed the first season. There were some elements that I didn't really care for, but I really loved the transformation scenes.
Oh yeah, the werewolf transformation was
Those
very
were beautiful.
unique.
And I like the
Beautiful.
ending. Well, they
Beautiful
were.
and grotesque.
Well, you know what I mean.
Hard to watch at times.
Very hard to watch.
I know what you mean.
But season 2, I haven't been able. I just haven't.
Well, they brought in some weird elements for sure.
Like they didn't have weird elements in the first season.
A different flavor of weird.
Okay.
More,
Right.
I felt like the first season was gritty and down to earth, and the second season was gritty and I don't know. I felt like the monsters were about to walk on set at some point.
Yeah,
but it was still good. It was still
okay,
fun.
so Hemlock Grove is an example. You say that a lot of those are upirs.
Yeah, one of the main characters is an upir, and his mother, who is one of the more distinct characters of the show, very sinister and political. She was an upir as well. But these are witches. These are, I don't want to say sorcerers. They're very clever creatures that are still very vampiric. And over time, we've mentioned this before, but over time, these two creatures actually merged with some other undead creatures to become what we know today as a vampire.
A vampire. Matter of fact, the words ubir and upir, it's debated that that's where the word vampire and our modern vampire comes from.
Yeah, there are 4 different words. And I'm going to probably mess these up, but there's upir, there's ubir, then there's upir, I believe, and then there's vampire. So it's like 4 different words that people argue over, and one of them is literally vampire. But yeah, it's crazy. These 2 are important to bring up tonight. We're going to go into a lot of Asian creatures.
A lot of Asian vampires, a lot of Asian zombies and undead across the board.
Yes, but these are good anchoring points to keep in mind. 2 different aspects of what would become the vampire that we know today. The more zombie, ferocious, corpse-like creature, and then the more witch-like creature that shapeshifts.
Shape-shifting witches. All right, well, let's go over... Okay, that was Europe, the ubir and upir, where we kind of anchored our conversation tonight. Let's jump over to China and Japan. We've talked a little bit about the jiangshi in the past. We've kind of teased it. We've done recently on our story podcast, our yokai podcast, the jikininki. Let's talk about those 2 to begin with. The jikininki from Japan and the jiangshi from China. Let's start with the jikininki.
Well, I feel like the jiangshi is actually going to be a bit more heavy and a bit more varied in our conversation. So let's start with the other one.
You want to start with the jiangshi?
No, I want to start with the jikininki.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, why are you arguing with me?
No, I'm not arguing with you.
Why are you mixing up the script?
I am having fun.
Oh, well, you're confusing me.
Are you guys out there confused yet?
People are tweeting me right now saying, yes, we are.
How are they tweeting you? This hasn't even come out yet.
I don't care.
You guys are time travelers or something.
People tweet me all the time.
Don't bring any of your time travel tweets to me. I can't handle time travel tonight.
Time travel. All right, well, the jikininki from Japan, which is not actually originally a Japanese creature. It stems from an Indian, as in Indian creature.
Yes. Actually, in India, they have a whole category of hungry ghosts. And these are people who lived, they weren't horrible people, but they lived very greedy lives or very vain lives, or they were very gluttonous in life. They took things in excess. And as a result, when they died, they became hungry ghosts. And there are several different classes. I think it's actually said that there are like 39 or some very large number of different types of hungry ghosts.
That's a lot of hungry ghosts.
A lot.
That's a lot of sins.
Yes.
A lot of sinful...
Well, I feel like they mix them up.
Greedy.
Too. So it's like,
hateful, lustful people.
I feel like you have group A, or I feel like you have group 1 who does, sin A and sin B, and then group 2 maybe just does sin C. But I feel like you mix and match.
It's interesting that you've taken the time to categorize these, even mentally, that you have a table of content type listing of the jikininki.
Just trust me, it makes sense.
Ghosts and monsters.
But
very, very interesting. I'm glad you spend your free time wisely there.
Hey, we do monsters. That's what we do.
It's true. But a lot of different hungry ghosts.
The jinki,
and I want to make a point here because a lot of like our Japanese tales that we talk about from time to time, I joke often that Japanese stories don't really have any reconciled end to them. This is one of those ghosts, one of those monsters that do.
Yes.
Because of the way they become what they are and the lessons learned from that. There's a reconciliation here. You're a greedy person, you end up suffering for that in the afterlife.
Well, and there's a point to be made there. A lot of yokai that we think of, especially after our month dedicated to yokai episodes, a lot of them are goofy or sinister or bizarre. The jikininki has a very different feel to it if you read the stories associated with it. It doesn't have that, I don't know, I guess it's not quite as bizarre as other yokai are.
It's a little bit more linear. It's a little bit more straightforward, and this is what's up.
Even the way that the jikininki is dealt with has a very different feel to it. They talk about the sutras and the different types of prayers that come from India that they use to deal with it. The jikininki, to me, the personality is weird. Maybe not weird, but it's different because it's almost like a Japanese Wendigo that's regretful of its past life.
Yeah, you had made that comment earlier that it was kind of like a sad Wendigo.
Mm-hmm. It is undead. It is distinctly undead. It's a ghost, but it can appear as a normal human. It's got a way to disguise itself as a normal human. Some are said to even be able to, walk around town and carry on a life as a neighbor to, other people. But its true form is ghastly. It has long claws, bloodshot eyes, long teeth, wretched, rotting skin. It's definitely got that corpse vampire look to it.
Yeah, and it's in the activity of it devouring the flesh of the deceased. I mean, it all to itself is just gross.
Yeah, it is. It's very specific. Again, it's not going to go and start eating people that are walking around. It's not that type of vampire. It's more like a zombie that goes and eats cadavers. They're known for going up to the bodies after a funeral or something and devouring all of the body there and all of the gifts. And actually, the story that we read from a couple of weeks ago talks about how he must. He says, I do not want to do this, but I must.
Yeah, he's cursed to this life in the afterlife because of the life he lived previous.
And then he goes to the priest and he says, please say a prayer for me. Please do the rites for my spirit so that I may move on.
Yeah, to release him.
So you have it's almost more like a zombie, but it is very intelligent and it's very limited to what it actually does or eats.
And that's the jikininki. Now the jiangshi from Chinese lore is very much a popular zombie figure. So much so as to be compared to, say, our walking zombies here in the US.
Yeah, and we actually have movies. We have cinema to thank for that, I believe. If you play a lot of video games, watch a lot of anime or something, you would have seen one of these creatures in there. Even if, I've mentioned it before, even in Sly Cooper 3. And the Sly Cooper series, by the way, is a fantastic PlayStation series. If you guys haven't played it and you're missing out, go play it. But you even have the hopping vampires in that series. What are you laughing at?
You and your games. You gotta talk about time traveling.
It's a
PlayStation 3.
What? It's not that old. No, they're all over the place. And these are very distinct zombie-like creatures that hop around. The name jiangshi actually means stiff corpse, and they're known for their jerky movements because they can't, they don't have limber limbs. Is that redundant?
I think so.
They don't have limbs that can move around very easily, and they are not necessarily intelligent either. They definitely get up and walk around, but they don't, or hop around, I should say, but they don't have like a will to live. They're not, your typical vampire that's trying to take over a small city or something.
And the jiangshi can be controlled by a priest by way of a talisman that's placed on its forehead.
In fact, many people have stated that that's actually their origin. A long time ago, people would want to bury their dead or their ancestors where they died, or not where they died, sorry, where they're from. So if you die, you want to go back to your hometown and be buried there. Travel, though, obviously was very expensive. So obviously, you go to the priest and the priest slaps the talisman on the forehead of the corpse and is like, hey, go hop back to your homeland. So it's almost a little goofy to imagine this corpse, they see off the corpse and it's just hopping back to its homeland to be buried.
Yeah, in most cinema, though, where you see the hopping vampire, you see a whole line of them. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of them together that are being controlled by a single priest to do his bidding. So it's not just a single one on the way back home. It's a whole line that's been kind of assembled as a small army.
Yeah, and it's really cool.
Which is even funnier to see a whole army of these corpses hopping around.
It is really cool. I feel like film has taken that and played with it, given some artistic liberty to take it away from the monster aspect and make it more of that movie monster fun aspect. I enjoy it, to be honest. We'll actually have the first trailer of Hopping Vampire, or Mr. Vampire, up for you guys to see, the same one that we reacted to. I think it's something that everybody should see because it is a great showcase of the different bizarre elements to expect from the film.
Yeah, we'll put that video up, that link up in the show notes on the website and everything. Also had the nukekubi in there. I think we talked about that. I don't know what other monsters. It had several, and then the what I call the granddaddy vampire at the end kind of reminded me of the big daddy at the end of Lost Boys.
Well, it had a bunch of different types of vampires, basically other flesh-eating or energy-eating creatures, and that's something we should mention about the jiangshi while we're talking about it. These are not creatures that are going to go bite into you or eat you. They do have the ability, however, to absorb your energy, very similar to those old Russian vampires that we've talked about before that would hover above you while you slept and suck out your life force. These guys would chase you around. They would actually be able to sense you when you were breathing, and then they would suck your energy out. The funny thing about that breathing part, if you hold your breath, then it said that they won't be able to see you or sense you, so they stop chasing. On the flip side of that, and this is kind of gross, if you can catch up to the thing and suck its breath out, because it's got one last dying breath in it, if you can suck its breath out, then you've beaten it and it will stop chasing you.
I don't think I want to get that close to it.
I just, I don't want to
I don't want to give the thing the wrong impression and then it takes a bite out of me.
I just don't want to suck the living breath out of a cadaver. That sounds gross. It sounds like
the one last breath.
Yeah, it's got to be stale. It's got to be nasty. It's like, it reminds me of when I was a kid.
That's like morning goat breath right there.
Well,
you're just
gross.
like...
I remember when I was a kid, I tried to blow up a balloon that had been in the back seat for way too long, and I guess some dust had gotten in there.
Ouch.
And
yeah.
I remember inhaling a bunch of dust. It was very, it was gross. I imagine it's like that, but with morning breath.
Morning goat breath right there. Go kiss the jiangshi and beat it. No, thank you. Just let it hop away. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
let's move on then, because the jikininki and the jiangshi kind of work together. Let's also talk just briefly. You wanted to mention about the rokuro-kubi and the nukekubi as a reference point.
Yes, partly because, and these are not undead. We're talking about undead this month. The jiangshi and the jikininki are both creatures that have risen from the grave or come back for one reason or another. The rokuro-kubi and the nukekubi may be undead, but typically they are not. They're just cursed human beings. If you listen to our last yokai podcast, you'll know that these are creatures that have weird head issues.
Yeah, a lot of floating head and stretchy head stuff going on there.
The rokuro-kubi is typically a woman who goes to sleep, and then her head becomes like its own sleepwalking entity. Her neck stretches out, and her head just floats around. It'll float around the town.
With the rokuro-kubi, it remains attached.
Yes.
And just moves about. But with the nukekubi, it detaches completely.
Yes, and that's the more dangerous one. It is a vampire. It'll go around biting people to death and then drinking their blood, screeching at them.
And that's the one that we just this past week did a story about on the Yokai Podcast. I believe Yokai Podcast 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh, we're moving up.
Our 10th Yokai Podcast. Yeah, we're in the double digits now.
We should have some fireworks, some little poppers or something.
Something like that.
But yeah, okay.
Hobbits,
do you want to...
Stuff like that.
I feel like that's a bad combination. Like, I don't know if our property is... it's not the Shire, so it's not... We can't handle that many explosions.
We just planted a whole thing of apple trees. It could be the Shire.
Well, let's not burn those apple trees down with fireworks.
Okay.
And Gandalf.
All right.
And hobbits.
Okay. So what about the nukekubi?
Well, like I was saying, these are not necessarily undead. There's one story that mentions that they may be undead, but typically rokuro-kubi and their cousins, the nukekubi, are just people that are cursed for their bad deeds or their selfish acts or their gluttonous lifestyles. I just wanted to mention those guys, and they will also be relevant for one of the last creatures that we'll talk about tonight. So just throwing that out there now before we move on to
the Philippines. Let's move on to the Philippines now. Now there is a list of creatures that we're going to go through on this one. Let's start with the manananggal.
I wish we had more time for it to be a more distinctive list, because this is actually something that's a bit personal for us.
It is. Part of our family is Filipino. So anytime we bring up monsters from the Philippines or talk about that Filipino history or folklore, it kind of gets exciting around here.
Yeah, it's super fun. And it's still a very superstitious part of the world, so a lot of these monsters are relevant to this day.
Now, I said let's start with the manananggal, and maybe we need to back up a little bit and kind of categorize a little bit at the beginning, because the first three monsters that we're going to talk about are all considered aswang.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we need to define or talk a little bit about the aswang and then break those down briefly from there. So the aswang.
And that's kind of why I wanted to start out with the ubir and upir. So the aswang, I would say, is like a Filipino upir. It's not necessarily...
Yeah, like the witch.
Yeah.
The shape-shifting witch.
It's not necessarily undead, but it is a witch, and it should be mentioned that a lot, not all, but a lot of these Filipino creatures are women. They're female forms. But the aswang could be male or female, but it is a witch, and it is a shapeshifter. A lot of the time, it'll show up as a bat, or more commonly, as a dog or a pig. And if you see, it's said that if you see an oversized pig or a giant dog, then it's an aswang out and about.
Now, we actually watched an episode on Grimm, that TV show, I think a couple years ago, about the aswang. And they had a little storyline running for a few episodes. And I think what was kind of interesting about that, it was a mix of several different creatures making up this aswang creature. And I think that happens a lot in storytelling.
It does, especially with the aswang, because, you guys out there should pick up on this by now. Trolls, you have lots of different creatures that fall under that category. Fairies, yokai, those are both kind of umbrella terms. Aswang is a very distinct creature, but at the same time, an aswang could be a manananggal, it could be a
langsur or omalinig.
I'm glad you're saying those, because I have Filipino in me and I can't say it straight.
So start with the manananggal, because that's a whole list of monsters under the aswang. So let's talk about that one first.
So the manananggal is pretty
Plus, it's
cool.
just fun to say.
It's hard to say. It's actually the easier one to say on this
Right.
list. The manananggal is really cool. It's a female witch, said to be older in appearance, but still very attractive. She'll stand upright, and at night, her torso will actually separate from her legs. So her legs are just standing there, and her torso will grow wings and then fly off.
Absolutely stunning vision, by the way.
It's bizarre.
A torso separates, grows wings, and flies off.
Very bizarre looking creature.
Could you imagine, like, camping out?
Well, to take it
over
a step
weekend and
further,
see this happen.
Take it a step further. She also has a long proboscis-like tongue.
Oh my gosh.
I actually think that the aswang is where we get the image of the vampires in Del Toro and Chuck Hogan's The Strain, that series. Yeah, but she's pretty nasty, can commit all sorts of magic, and this is a common running theme, and this is where a lot of Filipino monsters are so touchy, I guess. They're very ferocious and vicious because they go after a particular type of people. They go after pregnant women and the babies that they carry.
Yep.
And that's what they use that long proboscis-like tongue for, is to go and suck out the children while women are still pregnant. Very sad, but in Filipino culture, they actually build their houses a certain way, or did at one time build their houses a certain way to defend from those types of creatures. And there are many customs in place to protect people that are pregnant because of how many creatures will actually go after pregnant women.
Yeah, so, and I wonder also, we've talked about the history of these type of creatures before, and I wonder how much of that mythology is an excuse for abuse or malpractice or mistreatment, that type of thing, against human beings, and then it's easy just to blame the monster that nobody can find.
Well, with as many monsters as there are that go after pregnant women, it is pretty apparent, I would say that that's kind of what's going on in some of these cases. The other side of that is that, again, a lot of the monsters here are female.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you wonder what all is going on.
Right. Well, that's the Mananango. Let's talk a little bit about the Omalinig.
I'm not even going to try to say that. I'm just going to piggyback off of you.
Okay, you do that. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, so this is where we get back to the undead here. It is a creature that is definitely undead. It's risen back from the grave, has all of the other features of the Aswang, but it's also a stiff corpse, kind of like the jiangshi.
Going back to the Happy Vampire.
Mm-hmm. One of the ways that you can defend yourselves from these particular Aswang is to run in zigzags, because being stiff, they don't change direction very well.
That's awesome. I just want to see a whole countryside of people running in zigzags.
So
we should do like a movie short where everybody's trying to get away from the Omalinig.
And
everybody's running in zigzags.
Away from itself. It's like a bear.
That's awesome.
But yeah, they really don't handle zigzags.
It's like in Florida, you see everybody running zigzags trying to get away from alligators.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking bear for some reason, but yeah. Yeah, they don't like zigzags. They cannot climb trees, and they are terrified of water. So, well, I was going to say go towards the trees or water, but there are other monsters in there. So just run in zigzags. Just
perpetually run in zigzags.
Yeah,
forever.
Don't go to the water. There are evil mermen there, and don't go into the trees because those are probably alive. And then you have the Langsier, which is also an undead creature.
A very tragic vampire.
Continuing the theme of difficult pregnancy in the Philippines, this is actually a woman who died during childbirth when the child also died. And due to the very tragic circumstances, she actually comes back as a, vengeful vampire spirit that goes around and, starts to eat people in return.
So yeah, a very tragic situation, the death of the mother, the death of a child, lending itself to becoming the Langshur. Now, overall, these first three that we just talked about, the Manananggal, the Omalinig, and the Langshur, are considered a swang as a broad sweeping term. What are some ways to defend? Because historically, there are some ways to look out for or to defend against the aswang.
Well, yeah, and those are very interesting ways. I think the one that always stuck with me as a kid hearing about it is the oil or the concoction that they would make. And I've heard a couple different bases for this. It could be a concoction made out of garlic or a concoction made out of coconut oil. And I feel like a lot of the monsters in the Philippines kind of have elements brought over from Spain and other parts of Europe. So I feel like that garlic concoction came into play later.
Yeah, I was going to say the garlic seems familiar to vampire stories. However, the coconut oil, maybe they're from Hawaii? I don't know.
I don't know. But these are actually concoctions that they'll make and place on their porch. And it's said that whenever an aswang is nearby, it will boil on its own. It'll bubble up in froth, and it will continue to do so until the creature has left the vicinity. So that's one way to keep an eye out for them. Now, I guess if you know an aswang is near, you should always look in a person's eyes. Because you know how if you look close enough, and you have to be really close to do this, the reflection in our eyes is upside down. I'm not an aswang. You don't have to.
I'm getting really close. I'm looking right into your eyes to see.
Forgot what I was talking about. I was wondering if there's like
if you are an aswang.
Spider behind me or like what's going on.
There's something in the window behind you.
Don't say it. Forgot there was a window behind me.
So the reflection in your eyes, it's reversed. We flip the images in our mind.
However, well, you can do this with a spoon as well. You'll see like a spoon. You'll see the person.
I am not going to stick a spoon in my eye.
No. Look at the reflection.
I'm not going to stick a spoon in somebody else's eye either, unless I absolutely have to.
Or a glass or something. Something that reflects things.
I would feel like I'm
down.
out of Monty Python or something if I'm trying to defend myself with a spoon against somebody's eye.
Well, by the end of the things I'm going to list off, you might still feel that way.
Okay.
But yeah, things that, the reflection is typically upside down in, like, an eyeball or, a spoon. And a swang, their reflection is not upside down. So that's a surefire way to know that they are not.
Yeah, you better have a really shiny spoon to see that.
I like to, shine my cutlery. So I've got plenty of.
Okay.
I don't know, is it spoon cutlery?
It's silverware.
Okay. But yeah, so those are some ways to keep an eye out for them.
Knife. Which a knife can be shiny too.
Well, I have not cut anything with a spoon, so yeah, those are ways.
You have not lived.
Those are ways to keep an eye out for the aswang.
You must cut something with a spoon to have lived.
I feel like so many movie quotes are going to pop up there, from Alice in Wonderland to A Knight's Tale. But yes, so those are ways to keep an eye out for an aswang. It's also said that they have very bloodshot eyes because they're up all night searching for people to eat. So many fascinating things about the aswang and the way that they live, because they actually blend in with humans fairly well. If you do find that your neighbor is an aswang, then here are some things to keep in mind. Or here are some things to keep on your person. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of elements are brought over from Europe, I believe. If you have silver, you can use silver to defend yourself. Garlic is also something that can be used to defend yourself. Salt is another big item, as in a lot of countries, salt is used in magic.
It's kind of a global.
Yes, definitely.
Magical element there.
Particularly with the Manananggal, it's said if you find, those legs that are separated on their own, you can actually rub salt over the separated torso or
and
the
they
separation.
Can't reattach.
They can't reattach, and then when the sun rises, they just die. My favorite, though, is a stingray tail. You can fashion a whip from a stingray tail or a sword, and it's actually said to harm the aswang.
That's fascinating. I wonder how many people go fishing for stingray to prepare themselves for the aswang.
Well, funny story. I mean, like one of our first convention panels that we did, a guy said that he had to go add that to his monster hunting kit. So there's one person at least.
We have influenced the world, Michael.
So now you know, all you need to do is go out and get a stingray tail and you'll be safe, and make some garlic coconut oil.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the tiyanak, which is a pretty scary little fella, the way he comes about. But he's also from the Philippines, the tiyanak.
Quite literally a little fella.
Yeah, I wasn't joking. I mean, this is a demon child.
Yes, this is unfortunately, again, tragic backstory. This is a stillborn baby that has come back as an evil spirit. And there are different ways this can occur, but it's generally believed that because they're a baby, their soul went to limbo or something and then came back to haunt people in this life. There are different ways that these guys appear, but similar to other creatures that appear as babies around the world, similar to like yokai, they will appear in the forest or on the road or in fields, crying and by themselves. So they kind of lure people in to pity them or to get people to help them, because who's not going to try to help a child out in the wilderness?
Right.
Problem is, when you get close, they show their true form, which is varied depending on the region, but typically, it's a baby that has bloodshot eyes and claws and big teeth, and it will literally bite into your neck and eat you. Classic vampire trope there, just in the form of a evil demon child.
Little demon child.
Pretty scary.
It is a scary little monster there. Now, moving on from there, we kind of move outside of the Philippines a little bit and go over to Malaysia, Indonesia with the penanggalan.
Yes, and this has always been one of my favorite monsters. I've actually wanted to get to this monster for quite some time.
Even though you have trouble saying it.
Yeah. It's just, the visual is strong. If you thought the Manananggal was weird,
See, there you go. I told that's why I'm here for you. I say these monsters for you.
The
penanggalan
is even more bizarre. This is another witch. This is another one of those upir-like vampires.
And another one of those Asian vampire-like creatures with a problem with their head.
Yes.
This is another floating head vampire.
Similar to the nukekubi. The difference is, instead of being just a head, this is a monster that separates from its neck and body at night, but it also brings along its vital organs and intestines.
It's carrying around its guts.
Yes.
This is a witch floating head that's carrying around its innards.
And it will catch you in those innards and digest you on the spot.
Absolutely terrifying.
Bizarre in all of its monstrous glory.
Grotesque.
It's fascinating. I love it.
A floating head witch carrying around that will capture you and digest you with the intestines that it's carrying around.
How can you not enjoy that?
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
It's like a witch sea cucumber or something.
A witch sea Did you just say a witch sea cucumber?
I mean, that's kind of what they do.
I guess. The penanggalan.
Yeah, so these are, I wish they were more widespread, but I have seen these creatures in stories like Hellboy and some other, cheesy B horror movies.
Did you just call Hellboy cheesy B
horror
movie?
I said other forms of media.
Because we would have words, you and I, because I don't think that's cheesy B horror.
No, it's definitely not. Mike Magnolia does a fantastic job with his comics especially. But yeah, this is a witch or a relative of a witch. Different ways that you can become a penanggalan. Penanggalan.
Penanggalan.
That one. Jeez. It all relates typically to witchcraft. There is a story of a girl who, or a princess, I should say, and her land was taken over, or her region was taken over by a warlord of sorts, and she kind of fell in love with one of his, not underlings, I want to say minions. Daniel has been filling my head with video games all week, and now all I can think of are big boss bad guys and minions.
It happens to you when you spend time with 8-year-olds.
But no, this chieftain's soldiers were nearby, and he was supposed to marry the princess, but she fell in love with one of his soldiers instead. And this affair went on for some time, I guess, until they were caught. And of course, the penalty is death. So they said that they were going to burn her at the stake for this. Before this happened, she got to a sorcerer and said, hey, protect me. I am a princess, do your duty or whatever, and protect me from dying. Unfortunately, the spell was hasty. It was not fully formed or whatever. For whatever reason, it did not completely protect her. It only protected her head and her vital organs. So her outside body burned while the rest of her floated away. And this is, I think, the best instance of an undead Penengalin. Penengalin.
Penengalin.
That one. Most of the time, these are not undead creatures, but I think that is the best instance of a floating head vampire lady that is risen from the grave or from some tragic death. So yeah, those are some of the bizarre Asian and South Asian vampires.
Yeah, and the Penengalam, there are stories that stem from Vietnam, Thailand, Korea about this one particularly. So she's got quite a wide influence in that region of the world. Yes.
The one that we spoke of is kind of central to Indonesia and Malaysia, but there are identical monsters by other names in all of the places you just listed off. And of course, the nukekubi is very similar to her as well.
Just such a rich and varied group of monsters. I mean, going all the way over from Europe to China and Japan, to the Philippines and other countries close to that. So many different vampire-like creatures, shape-shifting witches, just make up a pretty rich tapestry of monster lore in that part of the world with regards to the undead.
Definitely. I can't wait to get into some of these more in the future, get into the specifics of the Aswang, because they're very rich, very intricate, and to this day, like I said, a lot of people still are affected by the Aswang. And then you go into the Chinese and Japanese monsters, and those are more on the entertainment side these days, just because of the popularity of films like Mr. Vampire, but definitely would love to revisit some of these in future episodes.
Yeah, definitely. And we will. As always, we try to scratch the surface a little bit and then spend some time as we go in deeper conversations about specific monsters. So in keeping with our theme this month, we wanted to cover quite a range of vampire-like creatures and zombie-like creatures from the Asian countries. And we'll continue our theme next week. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, you can find us on themonsterguys.com. Please subscribe, whether you're in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts. And please give us some stars, a lot of stars, if you don't mind, and some good reviews. We'd really appreciate it, and it would help us continue what we're doing here. Find us on Twitter at The Monster Guys, Instagram, The Monster Guys, or on Facebook, The Monster Guys. Kind of easy.
Yeah. I mean,
we keep it easy for you.
Just Google The Monster Guys.
Yep. We are starting our convention season, what I consider our convention season. Have kind of already started it. Going to be going pretty heavy on the road throughout the rest of the year. So we hope to see you in some locations throughout the U.S., particularly the Midwest and the East Coast this year. In the meantime, have an awesome week. Stay tuned. In just a couple more days, we'll have another story podcast. This one, our fairy tales, I think fairy tales number 5 or 6 coming up this week. And we look forward to spending some more time with you during that podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.